Hey folks, and how are you doing? Now, welcome to this episode of The Next 12 Months. Now, I am joined today by the fantastic, the inspirational Dominic Fenton, and we're going to be talking about his industry and what his three predictions are for the next 12 months. So, Dominic, for people who don't know you, tell us a bit about you. What do you do? How do you help people?
Hey, Gary. Thank you for having me on this amazing podcast. Hi, everyone. I'm Dom Fenton, and I have three companies called Activity Connector, Dragon Ball Sport, and Multisports for Schools. And what we do, we work with children and young people around the UK, supporting them through PE and sport and getting them into community clubs outside of school, as well as supporting County Alliance programs, which is around knife crime and gangs, and also mental health. And I'm also a public speaker. So just a quick brief in terms of what I do.
Nice. And what industry are you going to be talking about today?
So what we'll do today, we'll talk about how I see education and also the sports industry, because recently there's been a lot of press around the industry itself. So yeah, I think it's a good place to start.
And I think I completely agree. When in the pre-chat, you said about your three predictions, and I think they're really key at the moment to listen to and actually see how they build over the next 12 months. So I'm really excited about what we're going to be talking about. But before we kick into those three predictions, tell us a little bit more about how the last 12 months has affected you. Just to give people a bit of context of where the industry is at the moment.
So, yeah, last 12 months, wow. Obviously, quite within education, it's been quite turbulent. Obviously, the guidance from higher up hasn't always reached where it needs to reach in sufficient time. So in terms of schools and colleges and that side of it, they've certainly done the best they can, but it has put some pressure on us as business owners because, again, we're having to adapt very, very quickly. What I think you'll find is that those that have been able to adapt have probably flourished. So part of what I do, I work with a charity. We went quite quickly into virtual programs and hybrid programs, and we've completely flourished. And I just think what you can't afford to do is sit there and wait. I think you have to be forward thinking. You have to be able to go, right, okay, we want to make a difference still. How are we going to do that? Okay, well, the best way is we can go virtually. We can support schools when their vulnerable children are in school, and other children are at home. But generally, it's about just adapting what you do to support what the schools need. But also, this from a sports injury point of view as well. It's been very up and down. I think a lot of clubs have struggled financially, not only in an amateur side of it, but also in a professional side, because actually income for clubs and groups is mainly paid by people paying money to come and watch. So where you had not only just the last 12 months, but before, where you had a lot of professional games where there weren't any spectators, well, how are the clubs going to, especially the lower level clubs, how are they going to then be able to pay players, maintain grounds, because they haven't got that income coming in? Yeah. So I think it's been a really interesting site. Again, some national governing bodies of sport who we work with, they've adapted very quickly, and again got into a virtual world, which has benefited them. But again, I think you'll see some that have struggled because they haven't been able to work out how they can get their sport played virtually.
Yeah, makes sense.
Or played at home, or played in a park, or something like that. So yeah, it's been a turbulent month, but I think those that are flourishing were able to adapt very, very quickly.
Yeah, and actually and I'm pretty much convinced that's actually probably a standard across most industries. People who have adapted have worked really well, and probably found actually new and exciting ways to do that. And it's brought on innovation quite a lot compared to how it was beforehand for some people. Some other people, not so much so. But I can imagine actually the well-being side of the sports kind of psychology when playing to empty grounds and not having the people in the audience and that kind of stuff. And that's just not football, rugby. You know, it could be anyone who deals with participation, audience participation, especially the events industry. That must have been a tough time. Tough time. But the income side of it, you might not realise that. But actually, as you said, most kind of smaller places, amateur kind of sports grounds and sports clubs, they do get their money from kind of communities and ticket sales. There's been no sales. Now, hopefully, that will kind of build back up again.
Yeah, and I think it slowly has. But again, I just think that, you know, you get a lot of amateur clubs who they continue going on family memberships, player memberships, supporters donating money. Again, if people are struggling financially themselves, they're not going to be able to pay that. So as much as their heart may be in that club, fundamentally people have to look after themselves and their families and their loved ones and do what's right for them. So if they weren't able to then do that, and national governing bodies, when we talk about a participation route and those sort of things, they don't have an endless pot of money. You know, they get money they'll then get funding from Sport England. They will have a pot of money that looks after it. They have a 4-year cycle where they had their goals and their plans and things like that. You know, a lot of that money is probably spent into trying keeping clubs maintaining, just so actually people have something to do. And again, clubs, generally a lot of people join team sport or clubs, even in individual sports, for that connection. As humans, we need that connection. So actually, even community clubs, they've needed to try and look at how they keep people together, how they keep people connected. And again, whether that's virtually, I know a lot of them ended up having to do, you know, if you're looking at junior sport, a lot of them tried to do sort of sessions with all their players while they're at home, just online. So again, you're still connected with your friends, you still connect with other people, and trying to build that into the program, as well as trying to do some be out a little bit more, and start trying to connect again. You're trying to have to continue maintaining that whilst they're at home as well. And it's a struggle. It is a struggle.
Yeah, it's a struggle for anyone, and that's a tricky situation to be in. But that gives people a bit of context about where we're at this moment in time. Let's look at your 3 predictions. So what is your first prediction for your industry for the next 12 months?
Right. So if we take the sports industry and the education industry so a little bit together. So for those that don't know, there is primary schools get money called sports premium that goes to head teachers to look at PE and sport in their schools. It's been going since 2014. Has it been regulated properly? Potentially not. Hasn't always been monitored the way it should be. So potentially hasn't been making the impact that people were hoping it should have done. But I get a lot of questions now asking what's going to happen to that money, because it's an awful lot of money, and if it's not making that impact, then what will happen?
Yeah, makes sense.
Personally, and I try and talk to as many people on this, and I try and keep up to date with what is happening. I think the money will change. I don't think they'll get rid of it, but what they will do, what seems to be happening at the moment is because of the mental health impact on children and young people through the last 2 years, the pandemic. It's now being moved more into sort of well-being and mental health.
Yeah.
Naturally, physical activity, sport, PE, all of those sort of things play an impact in that, because actually it's about being active, it's about moving your body, it's about building those fundamental skills that actually as a young child you can grow into being a healthy adult and wanting to be active as an adult. So I think the money will still be there, but what they will do, it will be more of an emphasis around mental health and well-being. So we're seeing a lot more organisations try and look at education or try to look at working with schools. And I know there are certain pilots, I keep on seeing new pilots popping up. And obviously one of my pilots is around children's mental health. But it's going to be, I just think, from that sort of funding and probably further investment, there'll be a lot more investment around children's mental health. Because I think, unfortunately, having experienced the services myself, the NHS and the mental health services are so stretched anyway. We need to do as much as we can at an early stage. We have to do this at that initial stage. So we need to look at how we can prevent things escalating for a child, to rather than trying to cure it at the end.
Yep.
Because actually, if we can get those early signs in, then I think it will benefit children, benefit the NHS, benefit the services in the long run. But I think that's one focus where that will head, and we'll probably see more money going into that.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And talking as someone who hasn't got children, so therefore I've got a very blinkered view of all of this area, because I'm not this. It's not part of my world.
Yeah.
I want to say that straight away. It must be really strange to think about the pandemic and the whole situation that we've kind of dealt with over the last 18 months. It's weird as a nearly 40-year-old person, but as a 4-year-old, spending half your life in this situation, that's a completely different context. So I know I deal with it differently to what they would deal with it differently. That must be really hard. But one thing that you said about kind of not waiting till the end to get it sorted, kind of putting those little bits in the middle, it makes complete sense, because that's their reality. That's all they know. And
it's a crazy time. I think it's been a crazy time for everyone. If you imagine, probably someone in secondary school now, year 9, they spent their first 2 years of a large majority of their first 2 years at secondary school, high school, at home. So actually, that whole part of that transition from going to primary school to secondary school, actually, it wasn't necessarily there. They were doing that through virtual lessons. They were doing that through virtual classrooms. They were doing that from home. The fact is, you had a lot of young people who go have exams, weren't having exams because we couldn't do it. I just think there was always there's always been a mental health crisis anyway. Even for the last, certainly ever since, probably from experience, probably the last 10 years, the services have always been stretched. Yep. This now is making them even more stretched. And that's why, for me, it's important that then actually we look at those early stages, we look at the early signs for children, whether that's through the pandemic, and it's not necessarily just not being at school, it's actually, for a lot of children, school's their safe place.
Yep.
Then, unfortunately, there may be domestic violence, there may be separation, there may be lots of stuff going on at home that we don't know about. Mm-hmm. And actually, you don't necessarily want to know, but actually school for a lot of people is their safe place. Yeah. So, and they haven't been able to do that because, various reasons, and they may not get on with siblings. It may be the only time they have a hot meal for a lot of children. So all of a sudden, they're being in a situation where they feel safer at school, and actually they can't go to school. And even now, when they go to school, there's, I spoke to a school yesterday, and they're back in bubbles again because cases are changing and things are moving. And obviously, working with schools, we do, and we run a lot of events for schools. We get every part of the country is different, and every single school, they treat things differently. So there's one school may want this, another school wants this. So as a provider, we have to be able to adapt. We have to be able to change what we do and just be very clear with each, and speak to a school before we work with them, before we do, what do you need from us?
Yeah.
And I think the more we do that, and we actually then you providing a service, because that's fundamentally what you're doing, but you have to be able to adapt to what the school's needs are.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. So that's point number one. What's your second prediction?
Second prediction is there's going to be, from a community point of view. So obviously all these three are slightly different, and they cover different areas. So second one is around community activity. Again, there's money that comes from Sport England. There's money that comes from other resources, and there's other pots of funding you can get. But I think now there's going to be there seems to be an increase in the amount of funding that's going towards youth engagement, like sort of youth engagement. It's not a new thing, because actually they did it years ago, where money went into what young people can do. Because unfortunately now what we're seeing again is another increase in children joining gangs outside of school, joining, being manipulated into getting involved in drugs and these sort of things. And there is a big correlation between trying to get children into sport and other activities, and it doesn't have to be sport. But for me, we're seeing more and more areas pop up. We're seeing more and more funding come into groups where it's trying to bring partners together to get children, to make sure children don't join gangs, and they get into community groups, and they get into, where it might be sport, it might be music, it might be drama, it might be, you know, the old youth clubs that we always used to go to as kids. But actually, it's important we're putting more and more. We need more responsible people around these kids. We need more and more people, role models that these children can see and look up to. Because otherwise, if they're hanging around the street, and it's not every child, we know it's not every child, but there's going to be a higher risk of, unfortunately, we're in a want now culture. And actually, if I know I just have to do that to get something I want, in a weird way, why wouldn't you? You know, especially if you're a young age anyway. But you know, we're now sort of, you know, the youngest I've spoken to or I've heard about is 7 years old. You know, my daughters are 9 and 11. It's 7 years old being involved in this. So actually what we need to be doing, we need to be raising more awareness of it, because unfortunately a lot of people live in bubbles, and they live in their heads in the sand a little bit, and I don't blame them. I get that completely.
Yep.
But actually this is something that's impacting more and more. So actually, as a community, as a whole group, we need to come together more to look at how we can support these children and young people, to show them actually people do care.
Yeah.
And we are, as I say, we are seeing more funding come into that area. So I think, again, that'll be another big focus this year.
Massive focus, and big, really important. Really important. 7 years old.
Yeah.
You know, at 7 years old, I didn't have a clue about what was right or I had a base idea of what was right and wrong. Obviously, my parents did a good job on that, but it's an impressionable age, and that's scary to hear, because my outside my bubble, like you said, you know, it's teenager stuff. Yeah, that's kind of when it is. But 7 years old, that's
And the thing is, what will happen? Sometimes they'll be drawn into it because it might be someone they know, might be a family member that's involved. So actually, it's easily done in that respect. And we just need to get to that point and go, right, okay, well, we know this is wrong. So let's now see what we can do to come together. And then we can move that forward. But again, it needs the whole community working together. There's too many times, and I heard last week that by the age of 7, children are then deciding whether they're going to be active or not.
Oh wow, okay.
So you know, we're looking at a couple of projects for 8 to 11-year-olds, partly because of that, but again, just around you get a lot of programs where it's like 2 to 7. They'll do a lot of these little groups and little companies that do like the toddlers programs from 2 to 7 years old. And my question's always been, well, what do they do after that? Do they join the club? Do they, if you're a rugby one, you want to go, the idea is stepping stone, you go to a rugby club.
Yeah.
Football one, you go to a football club. Okay, well, how many are doing that? And if they're not doing that, what are they doing? And actually, this sort of fits into that line, going, well, maybe there is a percent then that are falling into the wrong group.
Yeah.
Not knowing it at the time, but falling into the wrong group, or are they going to a club, or are they just not doing anything? Well, we need to help those children find what they want to do. And again, funding's a lot of that because parents haven't got a lot of money, a lot of them. So actually, are they going to try and feed the kid? Or are they going to be getting them to join a local club? Are they going to be spending it on alcohol? Because we know that happens, and that's not, at the end of the day, parents have got their money. That's entirely up to them what they do. That's no judgment from myself on that, but they will make that decision. So we need to then look at how we can look at that gap. And we don't want them going that route. We want them going these routes. So, and this is where the key focus, and I think there'll be a lot more sort of money pumped into that as well.
Nice. I like that prediction. That's good. What's your last one? What's your last third prediction?
So third prediction is just about the actual, as we were talking before this, there's been a lot, certainly within the sports sector. You've had all the stuff around racism come up with cricket. You have the taking the knee with the football. So I think actually we're now in a time where actually just as a sector things are going to change. Not that they should have changed already, and actually we shouldn't have had to need to change them, but we do. So I think my third prediction for this is actually what you will see. And I said it's not a business thing; it's more of an overall one. That actually there'll be a lot more. The governance will change in sport. I think there'll be a lot more repercussions, and all of a sudden, if we start hearing these things, they have to change. We should not be in a society now where this is still acceptable. So actually, the prediction will be, we will hear more over the next 12 months, but by the end of the 12 months, we will slowly be in a better position where actually we can encourage every single person, every single child who wants to try something to have that go.
Love it.
Because actually, at the moment, if you're, a young person going into cricket, if you're from a different ethnic background, from a different culture, are you really going to want to go into cricket and look at becoming a professional cricketer where this has happened? Potentially not. Are you going to be wanting to go onto a football pitch where we know that stuff still happens, where we know that there's still things coming out from crowds? Things have to change. So as a culture, and as a sector, we have to change. And the only way it will change is if we as individuals change.
Yep.
And we as individuals try and stand up for it, and try and actually just be that bit kinder and just accept people. So I think actually there needs to be a lot more acceptance. I think there will be, but I do think we'll still hear of more stuff over the next 12 months. But it'll be much more, I think, certainly over the next 12 months, we'll be in a better position because things have to happen. So it's not really a business one, but it's just as a sector, we just have to change.
No, I completely agree. And actually, if you think about kind of at the moment, everything's coming out. So people are kind of talking about stuff that I haven't really spoken about before. Not out loud anyway. They might have thought it, but they haven't really spoke about it. So, yeah, it needs to kind of crest the wave and then go back down again. But as you said, once everything's kind of calmed down and things have been aired and all that kind of stuff, we should be in a better position. We should be in a better position.
Yeah, we have to move forward. We have to move forward and go, right, okay, let's deal with what comes up. But actually now, moving forward, this has got to be in place. This has got to happen. This has got to be there. And actually that way, you know, everything I talk about and a majority of my work is around children and young people. I want to encourage children to try as many different activities as they can. Because actually, until you try them, you don't know if you're going to like them. Same if you want to be in music, you know, same with when we talk about hobbies.
Yep.
You have to try different hobbies until you work out which one you like.
Yep.
So actually, let's try lots of them. And, you know, as a parent, I'm a big believer in that. You know, and lucky at the moment, my girls have found football and they're really enjoying playing girls football. And that's great. And I will encourage them to do that, providing they enjoy it and they're happy doing it. But if they don't, okay, well, what are you going to do? Because you're not going to be sat on your phone. You're not going to be sat in your bedroom. I want you out and about. So I want you doing stuff. So I just think as a culture, we need to get children doing more. And actually, I think by changing governance and changing everything that's going on in professional sport at the moment, I think we'll be in a better place.
Brilliant. So they've been some really good, solid predictions that you've given us. If people wanted to find out more info about you, about any of the free businesses that you've got, your Kickstarter, all of that kind of stuff, how can they connect with you and find out more?
Well, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter. Any others? What other ones are there?
There's TikTok as well. But
yeah, I'm on TikTok. But yeah, we're starting to push that a little bit more on business. That will be a business one as well. Yeah. But yeah, I'm probably the easiest one is check out the Activity Connector. Yeah. But again, all the other ones are on all those social medias as well. Or you can give me a call. You can drop me a message, and then we can catch up. But it's very much I work with people. That's how I think collaboration is massively important. And the only way we've got to where we are is by collaborating.
Very true. And on that note, thank you very much, Dominic, for your time. This has been the Next 12 Month podcast. And remember, please connect with Dominic. Please check out the Activity Connector on all socials. And I'll put links into the description for his website as well. And anything he's got coming up, just so you've got it, click it. So click on the link above or below, wherever you're watching it. But cheers, Dom, for your time.
No problem. Thank you.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.